Hello, lovely, and welcome to another episode of Loving Life with Court. Today, we are talking about a life that is loved and full of hormones. A life that is loved and powered by your hormones. For all of my male listeners, this may not be your episode. It will be quite female dominant, but if you have important females around you, or you think that this episode may help a female that you know, go off and send it or listen to today's episode. All is welcome. But like I said, it will be very female dominant, and that is because we are talking about the menstrual cycle. I have been really interested in learning how we can optimize this time in our month to month, the menstrual cycle, the 4 phases, how we can really utilize this time to succeed, to live a life that we truly enjoy, and take away any negative associations that we have with our menstrual cycle. Because I'm sure you feel the same way as I've felt many times, that the menstrual cycle can really have a strong impact on your day-to-day, how you are feeling, your hormones, your mood swings. Like, it can just go on and on and on. So today I have been taking everything I've been learning and put it down, and I'm ready to talk about it in one episode. So stick with the ride, because we're going to be talking about quite a bit today. But the goal is, the intention is that you leave this episode with much better knowledge on how the menstrual cycle can actually be used to your advantage, and how really it's like a full power move if you can use it to your best of your abilities. So let's dive in. Before I begin in really outlining what times are best to do what and how we can optimize our time during different phases, I want to break down the 4 phases of the cycle for anybody that may not be too aware of it, may not know what hormones are going on, what are increasing, what are decreasing. So really briefly, I'm going to explore those with you, and then we'll dive into, as I've said, how we can use the cycle to our advantage. So there are 4 phases of the menstrual cycle. And based on what I've been learning, some people identify the follicular phase as the first phase. Some people identify the menstrual for the first phase. I don't think it really matters. We all go through it. So for this purpose, we are going to use the follicular stage as the first phase. And this is what overlaps with the menstrual cycle. It supports the preparation for ovulation. And this is when our estrogen levels begin to rise. And this has a significant impact on our energy and our mood. And then after that, so this lasts for about 14 days. Next after that is ovulation. And this is a fertile window, and estrogen peaks. You have the feel-good hormones. You might be a little bit hornier than usual. There's a significant production of serotonin. So those are all the feel-good hormones, like I mentioned. And also progesterone is starting to rise, and these have natural calming effects. You're able to think a bit more clearly. Essentially, when you are ovulating, you are living your best damn fucking life. I can relate on that, and I'm sure you can as well. And the sad thing about this is this only lasts a few days, anywhere from 2 to 3 days. After ovulation, you have the luteal phase, and if pregnancy, fertilization doesn't occur, this is when progesterone and estrogen levels drop, triggering the menstrual cycle. And this is when you have bleeding. It's an indication that there's no pregnancy, that no pregnancy has occurred. Hormones like estrogen and progesterone are at the lowest. And as I've mentioned, this has a huge impact on your energy and mood. Why many people tell us that we're being a bitch when we're on our period, but it's our hormones. So now that we've gone through that, and I want to touch on as well, actually, before we dive into the next section of this episode, something that I have made a huge priority in learning all of this is taking information from female doctors. There has been such a large amount of studies done on the menstrual cycle, on women's hormones, just women in general, done by males. And for me, it's a little bit unsettling as it was very dominant many moons ago, or not that many moons ago, where males were doing all the studies on female anatomy, how our hormones work, like just everything, female anatomy. And what's so funny is as women, we have at 28 to 32, depends who you are, depends your cycle, but our cycles of when we have the peaks in our lives and the low of our lives is on this like 28 average 28-day window. But with men, those peaks happen all within a 24-hour window. So I have made it a great, great, significant priority to ensure that everything I'm sharing with you comes from a woman, comes from personal experiences, studies that have been conducted by women with women. And yeah, very women dominant is what we're talking about today. But let's move on now to the juice of this episode, which is how can we use these times that may not be as favorable as others to become the baddest bitch, optimize our success, reach our goals, be the best version of ourselves, and love our life? Well, let's dive into that now. So, what we're going to look at now is we've gone over the phases, and now I'm going to share with you kind of what these phases, what you can do to optimize these phases of your cycle, the best things to do, and the things to avoid. And let's start with follicular phase. This is our first phase. This lasts anywhere from 1 to 14 days. It overlaps the menstrual cycle. And this is what we refer to as creative superstar. The estrogen is rising and it's boosting your energy and your creativity. And the best things to do during this time is like starting new projects, setting goals. It's an ideal time for problem solving, engaging in high energy work. So this could be things like meetings and public speakings where you really have to show up physically, mentally, emotionally. And this time is really great to just dream big, set some awesome goals for yourself that later on in your cycle, the different phases can support those goals accordingly. Now, during this follicular phase, you also want to avoid any routine or repetitive tasks that don't engage, that don't spark your creative side. And these are things like data entry, signing paperwork, things that are just mundane tasks that aren't really exemplifying your high energy and the hormones that you're feeling. Now, phase 2, this is the ovulation time. This is when we are the best communicators. You heard it right. We are able to articulate ourselves. We are shining. We are magical. We are the baddest bitches that we've ever done seen. And like I said, this can only last about 2 to 3 days, maybe 4. I'm not too sure about that. But it is the shortest phase of our cycle, but it's also the highest phase of our cycle. And the best things to do is having important conversations. So, like asking for raises or negotiating, even in your personal side of life, if you need to talk to your spouse about something or family members, friends, like if there's some things on your chest, the best time to get it out is during your ovulation phase. Now, some things to avoid, and it's pretty basic, is isolating. Any isolating tasks like behind the scenes solo stuff, this is not the best time to do that. It's really going to conflict with the hormones that you're feeling. And this is when mood swings can start to come up. Now for phase 3, we have the luteal phase, and this is the power phase. We feel detail oriented. It's the best time to wrap up projects, do administrative tasks. So those mundane tasks that we talked about in phase 1, save this for your luteal stage. So after your ovulation, you have the highest ability to focus here, as well as like finalizing tasks, finishing any drafts. Like this is the best time to do that. In terms of avoiding, you want to avoid any new projects, anything that feels overloading. So you will naturally feel less social than usual. So it's best to align your schedule with any meetings and things like that during your follicular stage and your ovulation stage. And now we're at our last phase, and this is intuition and reflection. This is when these two things are the most important. On a spiritual side, it really exemplifies the importance of slowing down, reflecting, and tuning in, listening to your intuition, looking at how the past month has unfolded. And the best things to do, like I said, are reflecting, analyzing, tuning into your intuition about various decisions that you've possibly made. It's a good time to course correct. So adjust goals based on your reflection. So if you've tuned in and you're thinking, oh, this is not just, maybe it's not the best time for me to do these things. Maybe I went a little bit too much with something. Maybe I'm not putting in enough work with something else. It's really just a good time to reflect, not making huge decisions in this moment, but just reflect on how you're feeling and what has happened in the past 20 days. Now, some things to avoid during your menstrual cycle and your menstrual phase, is any high energy tasks and starting something new. So you want to avoid anything that's taking away from your energy. Our body is using so much energy to replenish, to heal, to, on a spiritual side, like really nurture our body during this phase. And what I am so guilty of is I'll just continue to push. And when I don't take the time to just slow down and reflect during the menstrual phase, when I get to that follicular phase and I feel ready to go, I'm actually so burnt out and feeling so low, and my hormones are very significantly influenced. So essentially, what this all means is when we push too much in some phases, don't do enough in other phases, it does really impact our brain. It causes hormonal imbalances. And the next thing that I'm moving to is learning what foods to eat, how to nourish our body during these different phases. So if you'd be interested in learning more about that as well, leave a little comment that you'd be interested. Reach out to me on Instagram, let me know, and I'll make sure to put in some time, some research, also some self-study, seeing how it affects me, so that I can bring you the tea on what's so important, on how and what to fuel our body with during these different phases. So that's today's episode. I hope that you are able to take something away that will really help you achieve whatever you're working towards. I love you so much, and a friendly reminder to not only be kind to others, but also to your beautiful, amazing self. I will see you on the next episode.